Chairman Powell, when you get ready, we're ready to hear you again. I'm going to open with a word of prayer, and you can listen to me as you walk over there. If you want to walk slower, stop right there. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time here, and we pray that we would do what's pleasing before you. Lead, guide, and direct us as we make decisions on what's best for the citizens of the state of Georgia. Amen. Yeah. Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and lady and gentlemen of the committee. I bring to you on the second pass House Bill 994. Y'all may remember this was one that came to y'all last week. This deals with the marine boat livery folks in the state of Georgia. Most of them has found that they're been placed in between a rock and a hard place because of the liability on the folks they rent to. This has gone through probably a half a dozen different changes to perfect things. The GTLA had gotten involved, and I think I'm appreciative of them because it's moved forward. But I'll start out on this bill, if you don't mind, on Section 1. This creates a new code section that defines boat livery. Basically, it says that anybody that's in that business as a boat livery person or a marina, that they've got to have a minimum of $500,000 per person insurance and $1 million per occurrence. And it requires that boat livery to have proof of insurance on the premise of where they're operating out of. Section 2, this relates to the tort section. This defines boat livery. It provides that a boat livery shall only be liable for any tort caused by the operation of the watercraft, and then it goes down to further state, to an individual who the boat livery knew or should have known at the time or before providing the watercraft was not reasonably safe. If they do these things, then they'll still be liable. To an individual whom the boat livery knew, should have known, did not meet the applicable requirements. That would be not renting to a kid under the age of 16 or something like that on a boat over a certain horsepower, and to be sure they've had the watercraft safety course and things like that. To an individual that the boat livery knows is operating a watercraft in a reckless manner, such as being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or quite frankly, they need to scrutinize any legislator that comes up there to run a boat. When the regional inspection reveals, or should have revealed, that the watercraft was not reasonably safe, then they would assume liability. When such watercraft was not reasonably safe in operating condition based on acts of omission, then they would also be liable at that point. Further, it goes on to state the operator of a watercraft rented, leased, or chartered from the boat livery shall be liable for any injury or damage occasioned by the negligent operation. Section 3 is the same language, except it added one line that says this code section shall not apply to boat livery. And that's what it does. I understand that the Insurance Commissioner's Office has got an amendment on line 16. It strikes that one line, and it puts licensed insurance carrier in this state or non-admitted insurer through a licensed surplus lines broker that insures such boat livery against any accident. And I would think from my earlier days in the legislature, that would be an insurance carrier that may not typically be normal, that handles a specialty type insurance. And I understand that Chairman Williams is going to offer that amendment. If not, I'll be glad to offer it.
Is it on? Okay, well, it wasn't blinking. Thank you, Chairman Powell. Yes, sir, I was prepared to offer that amendment because for those of you who don't know, I was a property casualty insurance agent for 30 years, and quite often we use licensed non-admitted carriers, non-admitted insurers through the surplus line system, in the state to typically insure hard to place risks. I see, from my perspective as a professional insurance agent, I see nothing wrong with this language. It gives another tool for consumers to access insurance based on the language of this original bill. So it expands the ability to have additional options for your insurance where needed. So I'm happy to amend the substitute to House Bill 994 with this language if it pleases the author and the committee. Yes, sir. And this amendment was AM 520023. And again, to read it, it says, amend the substitute to House Bill 994 LC 520446S by replacing line 16 with the following. Licensed insurance carrier in this state or a non-admitted insurer through a licensed surplus lines broker that insures such boat livery against any accident. Common, then it goes on with the original language.
Yes, I believe Steve Banders is here from the Insurance Commissioner's Office. I'd like for him to say a few words.
Just to hone in on that point with the surplus lines broker, this, as so eloquently spoken a while ago, this is a really tough, tight risk to write. Insurance companies will not have a right or an opportunity to underwrite that underlying risk. The person renting that boat, when an insurance company writes a risk, they're going to come out and look at your house, or look at your car, look at your driving record, and able to underwrite the risk. When you've got a boat rental company out there or any rental situation, that insurance company is insuring an unknown in many times. So to help the market, to help that niche market of the marinas that are out there renting boats, we felt like we needed to have the admitted and not admitted market available to them. And that amendment will allow that to be done. So that's why we recommended that language. Another item of the bill I'd like to talk to is, so we're shifting tort here. And so the person renting that boat is now going to be responsible if that boat owner has kept it up to date, it's operating, we're not negligent in the upkeep of the boat. So I wanted to touch a little bit on what the basic homeowner's policy coverage provides to the renter, okay? So if what's excluded under the homeowner's policy, so most homeowner's policies have a $100,000 liability limit attached. You have property coverage and you have liability coverage. You can go on to buy an umbrella policy, but your base homeowner's has $100,000 coverage. So any owned or rented boat by the insured that has an inboard or inboard-outboard drive over 50 horsepower is excluded. All right. Outboard motor, it's 25 horsepower. All right. So a lot of these rentals are pontoon boats. If it's 25 or less, that homeowner will have coverage under his base homeowner's policy. It also has a length requirement for vessels under 26 feet. If it's 26 feet or longer, it's not covered under your homeowner's policy. So those are some key elements in the base homeowner's policy that I think you need to be aware of since we are shifting that liability from the boat owner back to the person doing the renting. So any questions on? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for clarifying that. I've asked the question to the industry, and nobody's gotten back with me, but what is there in the typical boat owner's policy? Is there any extended non-owned, like most automobile policies, private passenger automobile policies and commercial policies, when it's endorsed properly, will extend to a non-owned car? excess insurance.
If it's regularly being made available to you. and you
Correct.
can- Right.
Correct. Or if my car broke down, say it is in the shop, and you lent me your car, say, yeah, use my car, my pickup truck, that's covered.
That's covered under because I'm giving you permission to operate
That's
my
correct.
vehicle. Yeah.
That's correct.
But here
That's correct. You're right in
Right.
that.
And then, but there could be a new, I'm not aware of a non-owned boat where that marine owner could extend coverage out on a non-owner basis.
What I'm talking about, though, is if the boat, the renter that shows up at the marina happens to have a boat in Oregon and he's down in Florida and wants to rent a boat, in Georgia to rent a boat, whether or not there's the typical boat policy has any extension of liability coverage. I don't know the answer to the question. Nobody's gotten back with me.
I would have to pull a policy. I have not done that.
And again, I've been out of the business for a while, but there were, very clearly remember there were some examples where an umbrella policy, you referenced umbrella policy before, in some limited circumstances has a drop-down coverage to the self-insured retention level that can fill
that
in
gap.
gaps.
Right.
That's not covered by the personal auto, not covered by the homeowners, or maybe another boat policy, but it might offer the policy
So
coverage.
I have, on my homeowner's policy, I have a liability boat owner's endorsement and a hull endorsement, for, the coverage for my boat. So I probably need to pull that out and see if I have extended coverage if I do run a boat. But jet skis are not covered. Jet skis are not covered under the base homeowner's policy. So, but that was the main item that we had to add. We really, the tort issue is an issue for y'all to discuss, shifting that responsibility. I don't think we really have a position on that issue. But when Sarah and I were talking about the bill, I did see where I think it would be helpful for these marine owners to have the availability of surplus lines coverage, because this is a very unique type coverage. Yes, ma'am. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is puzzling me? Well, it is on. Okay. What's puzzling me is what are we doing to make sure that the person who rents the boat, the regular citizen who doesn't know all the ins and outs of his homeowner's policy and whatnot, how will they know before they get in this boat and before the livery company lets them in this boat whether or not they're going to be covered? Is it
the latest version I see? The previous versions I saw had a posting involved that spelled that out. It had to be posted at the marina. I didn't see that in this most current version, that there had to be a posting that you are responsible for any actions on this boat. You're legally responsible. And that language, so I don't know how that renter is going to know that unless that marina owner, discusses that during the renting process, But I don't see any requirement in here that boat owner has to disclose that to the renter.
And you're okay with that as the insurance commissioner?
Well, this is such a very unique, I would like to talk to some of the boat owners to know what they're doing now. Are they insuring at all? Are they running naked on their coverage? What are these marinas doing? I have no idea. There is currently no mandate that coverage has to be placed. This is going to add, currently auto insurance and workers' comp insurance, there are only 2 statutory required coverages in the state. This is going to make number 3 if we put this insurance requirement.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, we've been talking about this as being similar to auto insurance. And so when a person has auto insurance and they rent a vehicle, they know if they have renter's coverage, they can extend that to the rented vehicle. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about the same thing here. And for the consuming public, I don't want them to be confused or to assume that they're going to have coverage and they don't have coverage. And if we're going to put something in statute and not require that they be notified, that's concerning to me.
I understand. One other comment that I did have in reviewing this, our minimum auto coverage is $25.50. We're putting $501 million on these boat owners. That is a tremendous difference. I mean, look at the exposure out there on our highways every day at $25.50, and then we're throwing a $501 million limit on these boat owners. Coverage may be just not affordable for them if we have limits at that high. So, just another comment.
This question is for the author of the bill. Would you have any objections if the committee put language in this bill to require the renter of the boat to have a notice in his rental agreement to indicate that the marina did not carry liability coverage when the boat's rented, or however that language needs to be? Do you have any objections to that?
I have no objection to that, even though I find it hard-pressed to believe that these marinas that they've had their back against the wall, because there is no insurance on the operator of the boat. When I came before y'all the last time, I was actually naive to believe that there was some insurance coverage, just like a rental car. There is nobody in 50 states that writes a policy for an operator of a rented boat, quite frankly. So that being said, I would think that any lease agreement is going to have something clear-cut in it, but if you would like to put the amendment in here, that in that lease agreement, that they notify them that it is your responsibility to know that there is no insurance, and so be it, if y'all want to put it in. I don't think there'd be a problem with that, put it in the rental contract.
Does anybody else from the committee have a question for the author? Here's what I'm going to do. The chairman has brought this bill to us, brought to him. It seemed like a simple bill. Now we've got, at the first hearing, I don't think we heard anything from the insurance department. It was ready to go. And then today I hear more rumblings about this group and that group wants to make an ad. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to hear this bill anymore. I'm going to let the author get with who's behind this bill, get the bill fixed to make all those 3 or 4 people happy, and then Chairman Lumsden will make a decision on if we're going to hear it in the full committee meeting. I'm going to put it back on him because I've heard all I want to hear, and it's not any reflection on the presenter or the department or anybody that sponsors the bill is for it or against it. This has almost become, I really don't understand what we're doing as the department said. But when we've got a 25-50 and we're going to a 500,000 million, and may not even have anybody that wants to write the insurance. So if anybody else has got any questions for the presenter, I'll be glad to let you ask him or the department. But otherwise, we need to fix the bill, get it ready, and don't have any more amendments in the committee meeting unless and when you bring it like it's. And to the presenters, he brought it both times thinking it was ready, and that's what he was told, and evidently it wasn't. So that's all I've got to say. And
Mr. Chairman, if I could just as long as we're all working on it, it's easier for me just to state one thing I think we might ought to review, and that is in lines 18 and 19. It says such policies to provide coverage not less than $500,000 per person and not less than $1 million per event. Typically, that's per occurrence. I think still the language. I refer to y'all. But is this when we're talking about that would be the claimants when they were talking about per person, right? Whomever's, but you could have 12 people on the boat, and that would be 500,000 12 times.
No,
I know that's the intent of the language, but is that exactly what the language is saying here?
1 million, because it'd be set on the same term, so
But-
that they could not exceed the 1
can
million.
cap, maybe.
But I want to just direct your attention to, is that worded properly in that line
Per
to,
person
Which is?
and not,
It says not less.
than.
Right, don't write it.
Let
we need
me,
to clean that line up.
here's what we're gonna do. The presenter of the bill is gonna get this thing like, he thinks everybody wants it one more time. And then they'll be contacted on the next, committee hearing and vote, I'm sure. And I apologize, but, it seems like, we may have another meeting and there may be some other people come up and want to add something to it. And I apologize to the presenter and that's where we are. And we're going to hear, if the presenter would like to
Yeah,
say.
if I may say something, I want to thank you, and I don't think there's any apologies that's necessary from the chair. This is just a legislative process. Good friend from the insurance commission. I wish to God they'd have talked to me before when I presented it the first time. But a lot of his comments, you know, when you have an industry, and this is quite unique to the fact that nobody writes insurance. There's no spot insurance for anybody. That's unique. But then the fact that we don't even require insurance if you own a boat. Now, a lot of us have been around long enough, we learned that you don't get drunk behind the wheel of a boat anymore. And I say anymore. Some of us used to do that quite frequently in the old days. But because of the liability, a lot of us has cleaned that up. But I must remind the committee why this bill was brought to you, why I was asked to handle the bill, that we have, Georgia is a recreational state.
Sure.
We've got lakes, we've got boats, and the marinas, quite frankly, are going out of that business of renting boats. For that reason, there's been, as you had heard, I think at the last meeting, there's been several high-profile liability cases that must have been Morgan and Morgan or somebody. But there were several high awards given, and it wasn't the boat dealership. Their boat was in good working order, but whoever was driving the boat had an unprecedented accident, and the marinas had to pay dearly, almost to the point of putting some of them out of business. Sure. So without something in here to eliminate vicarious liability, these folks are going to quit renting boats.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And if that's the intent of the legislature, then so be it.
Yes, sir, and I agree, and that's what I said in the last meeting. This is definitely something that needs to be fixed. I'd like to understand why there's been 6 insurers, now maybe we're down to 1. Is there that much experience mod that it's just dangerous? This is a big step. I'm not making light of the subject in any way, but I'm not as versed on these things as maybe I should be, but I know a little bit about insurance, and I don't feel comfortable making all these amendments when really in the next 2 hours it appears that somebody in this group may want to change it again, and I want to make sure we've got it right before we hear this bill again. And that's my opinion, and we're going to move on to the 1049 at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and ladies and
Next, we're going to hear House Bill 1049, Chairman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I present?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Let me get my copy of the bill. So, yes, today I bring House Bill 1049 LC 520317, known as the Insurance Business Transfer Act. And in simple terms, which is nothing simple about insurance, I don't guess, it provides insurance companies with an additional method of transferring big blocks of risk or big books of business. So it would require 2 reviews, both assisted by an independent expert through the Insurance Commissioner's Office, and in Superior Court and Business Court with further review. And how it works is an insurance business transfer plan must be filed with the insurance commissioner for his or her review and approval. The commissioner then selects an independent expert to assist in conducting the review and provide a report of findings. And the plan then goes into the court, which conducts its own review of the transfer and approves or disapproves. Things that are looked at include effect on the transfer of the financial condition of the transferring company and also the financial condition of the assuming company and its possible effects on policyholders, reinsurers, or other claimants. So, for example, you might have an insurer that's been in a certain class of business, and it could be as simple as a big insurance carrier that's been trying to be a player in in personal lines, writing house and car insurance, and all of a sudden they say, we want to concentrate on our core businesses of insuring large commercial insurance. So rather than just canceling all those policies, they would be able to, upon these appropriate reviews by the insurance commissioner's office and others in the courts, be able to sell that book of business to somebody that wants to be in that business. It could be a class of business that's, quite frankly, might be problematic. It could have been insuring some high-risk line that they want to exit that business, but the acquiring company's willing, and they might be able to sell it at a discount, and the acquiring company takes it, but the key is it would be safeguards or guardrails around any adverse consequences for the policyholders themselves, or put both the selling insurance company or the acquiring insurance company at a financial, put them in any kind of financial peril where they wouldn't be able to pay their claims that would be due and payable when they come. I hope that makes sense. Be happy to answer any questions if I may.
Any questions, Presenter? Chairman Logan.
As I understand this bill, it applies to a Georgia domestic company that is the purchaser of that book of business. Is that your reading?
Yeah, I've got Michael Shelnut here that I should have had him. We can go to the you can go to the podium if you don't mind, Michael. He is
Tell us who you are and who you represent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Shelnut, and I work with McGuire Woods Consulting.
Thanks, sir.
And yes, the buying company in this case would be a Georgia domestic.
and I failed to state that. Thank you for the correction or clarification.
Are there any other?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll come back. Representative.
I understand what we're trying to do. Don't we already do this? And why are we needing this if we already do it?
So you can do it the way, and the department's here, and they can speak to what processes. They already have all the books at their disposal. This is an in-coil bottle bill that was passed in 2020. It's been passed in 4 states: Oklahoma, Arkansas, Rhode Island, Illinois, and now I think it's working its way through the state of Texas. So it's based on a European law, and there's a lot of international companies that use these kind of mechanisms. So the reason we're putting it here in Georgia and codifying it is just giving the department another tool and giving them another access to use the court as another layer of protection for the policyholders in the system. We're trying to make the state more attractive to international players and larger insurance players. So
That was my next question.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Any further questions? Now, this would be, any transaction wouldn't happen until the department approved it, is that correct?
correct. The commissioner's office would promulgate rules and regulations, first of all, before anything can happen. And then obviously any application is filed with the department, and they are in the process all the way through. They even are in the process when it goes to the courts. So,
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, from my understanding is that once the book of business is sold the first time, it has to go through the audit process in that particular area, then it would go to the court, so it would be audited twice, if that's my understanding.
Thank you. Any other questions for the presenter or Mr. Shelnut?
Yeah, I think.
This is a hearing only. Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. You ain't gonna say do pass. You ain't gonna say do pass.
Good afternoon, members of the subcommittee. My name is Jeremy Betts. I'm executive counsel to the Department of Insurance, and OCI is the larger title. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on this legislation, and while the department doesn't have an opinion on the tools which you give us, we will enforce the tools which the legislature gives us. This is another tool, as was stated. I did want to point out one issue that was brought to me at about 2 p.m. this afternoon from our Georgia insolvency pool, and it relates to the scenario of a surplus line type of non-domesticated insurer being purchased by a Georgia insurer, and then insolvency pool coverage being granted to that initial claim. Our insolvency pool code requires that it be covered by the initial issuer, and so the issue that the insolvency pool is considering is that they don't want a non-covered policy to gain coverage by being purchased by a domesticated insurer. And so I, again, apologize for the very late notice on this, but I did want to bring that to the attention of the committee. And we have submitted language. We have it electronically, and I'm happy to share that, but I did want to point that out as quickly as we could.
And this is the first time I've heard about this, Mr. Chairman.
You, first time you've heard about it?
First
First
time
time I've
I've
heard about it, first time he's heard about it.
Well,
Chairman DeLoach.
would that language just go back and basically say you've got to have it for 12 months, so you'd have to go through a full renewal cycle, or how do you intend to do that?
It would track the original purchase, and in some instances, depending on how the process would shake out, there is an assumption certificate that is issued oftentimes, which would put it onto new paper of the domesticated insurer. However, the language that we're taking a look at right now would track your original policy. So if you didn't buy it with coverage, you wouldn't receive it you wouldn't just be able to opt into the insolvency pool by action of the business transfer.
But once the policy had been renewed, would it?
Yeah, once it becomes on the new paper of the new insurer, yes, sir, that would be
That
issued.
makes a lot of sense, and I think that's absolutely necessary to do that for the insolvency pool.
Any other questions? Huh? You gonna make a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.